Hey, welcome to the Agency Intelligent Podcast, where we bring you real agents inside real agencies, giving you the real information and not that artificial stuff they want you to hear. I am your guest host, Mike Crowley, and I am excited to join some of the voices that you are used to listening to for a short guest spot series with the Agency Intelligence Podcast. Jason Cass and I have been talking about doing this for some time now, and we decided we're going to do a mini series around family insurance agencies. If you have listened to any of the previous podcasts that I was lucky enough to be a guest on with Jason over the years, you know I come from a third generation family agency. And even though family agencies are shrinking in numbers compared to the old days, they still play a major part in the IA channel. So without further ado, let's get into this week's guest. By now, you know it is James Castell from Castell Insurance in Sequim, Washington. James, what's up, buddy? Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Mike, it is great to see and hear you. I know we're both busy and the time zone change has made it kind of difficult for us to always connect, but this is almost like being back in person.
It is. And for all the loyal listeners that are listening, we have this on YouTube as well as we are recording video podcast while doing the audio. So James, you're part of a family agency. We go back a few years and we do a lot and have heard a lot of the same stories that, between our agencies, even though we're across the country from each other. Give the loyal listeners a quick, 5-minute history on how you got into your family business. Was it always a plan since you were a kid? Did you have a super insurance agent poster on your wall ready to join, the family agency? Or did you fall into it like most of us did?
A little, yeah, I'll just jump right in because my dad growing up, so my father's the founder of the agency, but agency is a very generous term because for the first probably 20 years of his career, he was just a sole practitioner, really specializing in long-term care. So this was meeting with folks at or near the cusp of retirement, and it was a travel grind. He would book 4 or 5 appointments a day, and he would drive up and down the I-5. I'm located in Western Washington, and he would go and visit, John and Lisa at their coffee table, and have it all scheduled. And so he was the door-to-door long-term care salesman, big commissions, usually like one time up front. For those people that don't know it, it's probably more like a life type of policy. So he always joked I would work really hard, and then on the summer I wouldn't work really hard because I'd make the money at this time and I wanted to play with the kids. So he did long-term care for my whole childhood. And then as I moved out and graduated and went to college, he moved out to Sequim, where I'm located, so Western Washington on the Olympic Peninsula. And right at the same time that they moved is when Medicare Part D insurance came through. Yep. And for those people that are P&C loyal listeners, which I will get to, Medicare Part D is a prescription drug program that the federal government required people to have. So think about how auto insurance is required. Well, it's a small Medicare prescription policy that people are required to have. If you don't have it, you pay a penalty. And so it was new. It was required by the government, and no one was the expert in it. So my dear father, who's a very, very brilliant man, said, I'm going to be the expert. I'm going to be the go-to guy. And this is like writing like the lowest of low policies. Like the premiums are low. The commissions are maybe like $25 a year on commissions on these policies. But the concept was lead generator, foot in the door, kind of, we're going to help them with this, and then we're going to get the rest of the stuff, which is there's other Medicare policies that go with it. And so the business kind of grew and grew over years. I was off at college, drinking, partying, having a great time while working as a banker and going to all the Husky games. And I had just like the best time and really started a good career in banking. I was a branch manager at Bank of America by maybe 23 years old. I had really kind of climbed their corporate ladder in consumer facing banking. It was a lot similar to insurance, where I just help people with the financial, product. 2010, 11 hits, and it's right in the kind of the recession downturn. And my dad's business had grown and grown and grown, and he hired on a couple other family members. My mother worked for us. My uncle still works for us. And he bought a building. They went from working in a little old house, and he bought a building where all of a sudden he had street front visibility, like an actual corporate office with great parking, great visibility. And within like 3 or 4 months, he had all these people just walking in, small town USA. Hey, I'm buying a house. I need house insurance. Hey, I'm buying a car. Like, can I shop this? And they're like, no, dude, we just do Medicare insurance. That's it. And so that's where my entry in happened in 2011. We had the talk. I moved over from Seattle, right downtown Seattle, over to rural Sequim, where I am now, and started the PNC division from scratch in 2012. So 2011, at the end of 2011, I quit my job at Bank of America. I'd been there for almost 10 years. And in 2012, got licensed, figured out we couldn't get any appointments because PNC is totally different than health insurance. I'm licensed for all of it. So life, health, disability, PNC. But we ended up joining a big cluster, got appointments. And by, July 1st of 2012 was writing PNC policies.
Wow. So, so tell the people that, have thought this, the goal of this podcast and, any of these podcasts is to give some good feedback for the, the people that have been in our shoes, are going to be in our shoes, want to be in our shoes when it comes to doing the ins and outs of a family business. You got brought in and you're starting a whole new division from scratch, probably banking off of or using the lead generation of the existing book of business that your father built from that division. Tell me a little bit more about how that first looked. Did your father want to be more hands-on with those conversations? Did he just open up the book and say, feel free to cross-sell and call these people? How did that beginning stage work? Because I feel like a lot of agencies might be PNC only, and they want to bring in the life and health. They might be life and health only, and they want to be, PNC. They might be personal only, want to do commercial, or vice versa, right? But they're probably either they're nervous to make that adjustment to bring in and start a brand new division without the major experience. But then two, if they're bringing somebody in to do that, that's not the agent that consumer and customer is used to. Family agencies in small town, main streets are used to dealing with the agency owner or their agent or that person there, right? So if they're going to bring in a new person and they're going to start a whole new product division and they're going to start cross-selling and pushing products, tell me how that went. How'd that little give and take with your dad go? Give me a little, background on that.
Well, first off, it didn't help. I think he went through and I think he still is today. I think he went and got his PNC license just so he could feel better about himself and say like, at least I know kind of what I'm talking about. And to this day, he knows less than like half of the team about it because, he was fortunate enough to basically turn me loose and say, this will be like your baby. Like, I trust you to do it. Okay. In regards of learning curve, it was really difficult. I think at the time there were 4 other employees. I think I might've been number 5 and no one else knew PNC. So literally everything ran downhill to me, every call, every quote, everything. And I had like no one in the office to say, hey, how do you answer this? Like I had no mentor. So I was fortunate enough to meet in my training and licensing, a friend of ours, Gabe O, shout out Gabe, if you ended up listening to this on Walking with Gabe. And he kind of helped answer some questions. And I had a really great rep at Safeco Insurance that I called all the time. Like I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what to do. So what I would say in regards of the lesson learned, and this is what I think agency owners and business owners are so hesitant to, like, when you hire someone new, a new producer, they're not going to be profitable year one. And unless they have tons of experience and they're coming in guns blazing from another, independent from Missouri, and they move out here and they just want that, like someone new, you have to basically write it off that for probably 3 years. It's going to be 3 years until you get to the break even. You have to have that long play. And, we always joke because we're all doing very well now, but even, as a branch manager, I took a pay cut to come out and move to Sequim and work for the family agency. It wasn't a huge one, but like there were some differences and trade-offs. And my dad certainly did, because he was footing a salary for someone that literally had never written a policy. So, I mean, talk about faith in the process. So I think, not being so instantaneous. I hear it all the time on everything I listen and read. What's the ROI? What's the ROI? When am I going to get my money back? Like sometimes you know, when you buy a house, the equity is not built generally overnight. Like you build wealth in a property. Over owning it for 5, 7, 10, 20 years is when people go like, wow, this was awesome. And I think that insurance is just the same. You just got to have that long run. So he had no ownership in really how it was done. He was a great mentor for questions. But in regards of, he just basically said, the PNC is your thing.
Figure it
And so
out.
it took me 2 years of probably sinking and drowning and trying to figure out how to handle leads, how to turn them around, how to find what our niche was. I used to write everything. The general, you SR22, you need it tomorrow. You need this. You need mobile home. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, you want commercial? I'll try to do commercial. And like within about a year, I realized as a one-man PNC band, that wasn't going to work.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and that's, I love the analogy using comparing it to the value in your house, right? I totally agree that any new producer, if you're pushing to try and make money off of them year one, and they're new to the business. I mean, you're coming in, you're not only coming into a family business, but you're coming into, from a non-insurance background. You're learning PNC. You don't have anybody there to do, to think that you're going to make money is foolish in my eyes. But then again, the type of agencies that we are part of and that we run, we look long term. We're okay hitting, nice growth every year. We don't need to grow, 50%, 100% because we don't have the setups to be able to manage that to begin with. And I think there's still, there's still so many smaller independent agencies owned by some type of family member that are in these situations, and they're scared to make decisions on, do I want to invest in, bringing on a new product, bringing on a new carrier, bringing on a new employee? Like they just are a little nervous about that setup and what it's going to do. And again, because everybody just beats down, what's the ROI on these things? It's great that your dad gave you the keys, right? He gave you the keys to the kingdom of PNC for, Castell Insurance, and said, okay, figure it out. But, I'm not going to be telling you, what to do and how to do it because I've never done it. And it does give you that freedom. And I think that freedom is huge. You're not looking to him to make sure that, is it okay if we, sell this product? He's gonna be like, I don't even know how to sell that product. So it's just that nice flow that allows you to develop something your own with the support of, a team and some business to, have a brick and mortar location. Right. Most startups and brand new independent agents, they don't have brick and mortars on Main Street with, walk-in traffic. They're doing it in the basement of their house. So, that is a huge benefit. And I would definitely tie that to kind of how, as much as we're a PNC shop here and I came in to do PNC, we were a very heavy service-based agency. We were not a sales-based agency. And I was the first producer in, 25 years to walk through the door. So when I, how do I get leads? How do I, manage leads? How do I do this, and this? And they're like, figure it out. Here's a computer and a phone book, start calling people. And, obviously that was, years ago, but again, you had to figure it out. And they knew that they were going to have to build some kind of sales momentum. Same way, you're going to build the PNC momentum somehow, but they had all the, the business running experience that's needed, but they didn't actually have the experience to train you to set you up. And, we're both sitting here today through all the hard parts of that and coming out the other side, where I know, many others, probably a whole bunch of listeners, are still in that, the nitty gritty of that, looking to say, okay, I'm not there yet, but I know I need to be. And I know if I keep pushing here, maybe we can do something. You mentioned before, and I want to talk about this because I think for the type of agencies that we have, I think this was an amazing accomplishment on your behalf as a family-owned agency. And this past year, in 2020, your agency was named Agent of the Future by Safeco for the, your region. If any loyal listeners aren't familiar with this, a few years ago, Safeco started an Agent of the Future series and awards. It started with like a national one-time winner, right? And then they said, there's too many great agencies doing, great things across the country. We're going to break this down into, 6 different regions or whatever it is. And, I was thrilled to see your name come across as the winner for, your region, because I know some of the stuff that you've been doing and have implemented in your business. But to have an agency of your size and, our size, without full-time marketing people and full-time data analysts and all these other people that are, building and planning, for the future, to have a very typical but very progressive family agency win that, I think means, a ton. We hear some of the other award winners and they're national, writing business in all 50 states or across the country. They got program business. They got 4 or 5 marketing people on their staff. They run their own podcasts. They do all these different things. And you are just the typical, I'm running the best hometown agency in Sequim, Washington. But Safeco National Carriers look at me as agent of the future. So 1, congratulations. But 2, tell me how you were able to turn a Medicare supplement agency into agency of the future in, less than 10 years.
Dude, how much time do we have? Yeah, it was pretty cool. And I will say, before I get granular about some of the steps that we've done, because I know a lot of people like, what can I implement? Because everyone's different. And I love the IA channel because literally everyone's different. And some people, when I tell them what I do, they go like, oh my God, that's not for me. Like, I only want to write 50K commercial accounts. I'm like, that's totally great, because that's not for me. And you and I have talked about it. I just aspire to be helping as many people as possible, really, in my like hyper local community. There's, even in a small town, there's enough business to go around. It will keep me plenty busy. I could grow this to be on PNC, probably a $10 million agency, and I could do all the stuff that I want. To me, it was, I came in and I got to start from scratch. So that was helpful. So I got to do things like having everything in the clouds. This is back where everything needed to be printed, still signed, but then scanned and uploaded. So there was a lot of that. And I'm talking still people, every policy for the first 4 years I wrote happened in my office. People came to me, we signed it, we agreed, we did everything. And then I scanned their wet signature to make it digital. And really, I guess kind of what happened is I took grasp of the social media marketing and being present, and really the concept of give it all away for free. So you'll never see any of my stuff saying like, we can save you 20%. We're going to quote you this. You need to quote, call Castell, call me for a quote. No, it's like always the education. It's give away the content, educate people for free. You will find the people that want to do business with you by giving away the information. And then I've told this once or twice to other people. It happened about 2-3 years ago. We were verging and tickling into digital. We had text capability from an app. We had a new website being built. Like, we had some of that capability, but we had like a once in 100-year snowstorm where we are in an area, Western Washington doesn't get much snow anyways, like 2-3 inches, people go crazy and shut down in the office for a day. Not like you,
Yeah.
But we got 24 inches in 24 hours. So we're talking like blizzard.
That's a Wednesday here.
Yeah. In Washington, it was blizzard epicenter. We were on the national or international news channel. Like, my cousin in England saw it. Sequim, not like what, but like Sequim was the center. And our office was like straight up shut down because no one could get into the office. Our city didn't have snow plows. Like, we were shut down. It was basically like, I don't even know if we changed the voicemail or if we could check it. And this was like a aha moment of me going, okay, we need to get a VoIP system.
Yep.
We need to have interconnectivity where people can remote in. We still have a great IT provider that we have networks and servers in a physical office, because it's not all cloud-based, because that's not always the most reliable and secure. But anyways, I divest. That was the aha moment of like, oh my God, I got to figure this out. So we put all these tools in play, And it really helped us. I think part of the reason why Safeco gave me the shout out to this little award recognition, COVID didn't slow us down. For a lot of agencies, that digital pivot, the work from home, the access was a steep learning curve. It wasn't flip the switch. Some people out there have been doing this for 10 years. To you guys, kudos. This podcast is not for you who are like, we've always been digital. We are like, this is for like the people who still have landlines, who still need to log into their one compute desktop at the office, right? This is like, we're trying to give people the information to the people that need it, right, Mike?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So it was, it was eye-opening how quickly we flipped the switch. We used to all love the big group Zooms because it was new and exciting and fun. And we did all this as a team. And, for the first 2 months, it was dead. I don't know if anyone else can recognize back a year ago, March and April, it was like, all people could do is watch the news and pandemic crazy. And so traffic was slow. But then by May, it was like almost back to normal call volume for us. And part of the big thing that we did with Medicare, there's an open enrollment period. And what that means is every client wants to be touched. Maybe doesn't need to be touched, but wants to be touched in a 10-week period. And we're talking, we're fortunate with thousands of clients want our services. Like we have thousands and thousands of clients in our book. And there was always a lot of in-person. We did in-person seminars at the local civic center. We had in-person meetings. We signed up. Still 85% of our policies used to be done in person.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't be.
Mm-mm.
And we couldn't say, never mind wanting to grow, which we want to grow. We couldn't say, hey, 4,000 Medicare clients, we're just taking the year off. We're not going to help you. We're not going to review your stuff. We're not going to do it. This year stinks. We're just taking. So it was, how can we pivot and do this digitally? So we created YouTube playlists, YouTube explainer videos, we created our own website for people to go do their own drug review. Now there's one that exists called Medicare.gov, not proprietary, but we basically made our own. We hired someone that does our own, and they could enroll, similar process, but we kept the commission. We were still their agent, and they still did it from home.
Yep.
And then we still managed to grow. I was telling my Safeco rep this. We wrote over 450 new households in the fourth quarter while not seeing one person in the office.
Now that's amazing. How many staff members total do you have?
8.
That's why that's amazing in my eyes, because, one, you're doing it differently and you're doing it remotely, right? So the community of Sequim, Washington might not be used to, at this point, working and doing stuff digitally. I tell people, I always look at the bright side of everything, right? There's not many bright sides of this past year in this pandemic. One of those bright sides, if you needed to find one, is the fact that people got more comfortable doing things digitally in these little hometowns, or depending on their age group or what they were comfortable with. You tell them, hey, you want to jump on a Zoom call? They weren't like, what's Zoom? They actually have heard or been on one, at least if, they had a happy hour with their family, all across the country, or, they did something. So they weren't totally oblivious to the need of that. Or, hey, can you, electronically sign something for us, and we're going to send it to you through your email, and it's going to take you, 3.2 seconds to complete. That to me is the bright side, because for agencies like yours that are set up this way, or got set up this way prior to the COVID shutdowns, you did see the increase. That's a lot of new households in one, quarter of the year. And you did that because you were set up that way. You had the YouTube channel, built, right? You had video content that you're pumping out, getting that education. And, I encourage every listener to go find you on social media, because from a video person to another video person, your videos to me are some of the most real videos that a consumer would want to watch and connect with. There is no major fluff. They're entertaining. They give great information. I'm jealous of the videos that you do, because of, I think, the production and just the quality of what you do is, spot on. Like it, people try and get too fancy sometimes, And I mean, I've tried to get too fancy.
Yep. I remember
Yours,
seeing one with you like in the snow and you like were filming yourself getting into the car and doing all the B-roll and stuff. You were trying to be Ryan
terrible,
Hanley.
terrible. And I don't have the skills like Ryan does. Shout out Ryan.
No, you don't have the time. You're servicing thousands of policyholders.
Well,
We
that
talked
too.
about this. Like, at the time, Ryan, who does great stuff, at the time, that was his job, right?
Yeah.
That was his role. And we don't need to mimic that. We just need to give, what do you want to know about insurance in 2 minutes? Because you're probably tuning out after 40 seconds. So like, how can we do it?
How can
How
I answer this question as fast as possible to keep you engaged?
Exactly.
And your videos do that. And I track to the PNC side ones that you've done because obviously that's what I know. But to have products like the Medicare supplements and all those other things that you can do those how-to videos, or this is what this means, really dive down to educate the customer. There is no need for those big, conferences, at the local hotel or civic center to, bring people in to review what, plan D is, or plan, this supplement over here. You can have all those stuff and make such a difference for your consumers, and it's going to show. You didn't need to, you threw on 400 plus households in a quarter. You didn't have to hire, 4 people to handle that. You didn't have brand new producers to do this because you have those processes. So I definitely agree with what Safeco said, and being able to set up your agency for that success is the way of the future. A lot of people, probably a lot of listeners, and like you said, this podcast is meant for the ones that are still stuck down in the weeds, right? Still trying to figure these things out. Because if you pay close attention, there's a lot of people that say, the local independent agent, the generalist, or the personal lines agency, it's going to become a commodity. And I have totally disagreed with that for, probably all of my career, and even more so now. The problem is it's not going to be a commodity for agencies that are set up like yours. Okay. This is going to be what consumers still want when they deal with an agent. You are setting it up for the consumer to be successful in having the choice to do things electronically, but post-pandemic, come on in and we can talk in person too. And the people that totally brush away from, giving the consumer choice and the ability to figure out how they want to navigate this, they're going to lose to the likes of Geico and Amazon and, Google at that point. They're not going to be able to compete because consumers still want to have that relationship. Brandon Smith said this at the IAOA concert.
He is like a rock star. Shout out, Brandon.
I sound like Cass when I actually try and say IAOA. But when he did his presentation talking about the difference between a contact and a contract is the R and the relationship, is the number one quote that I can ever take from any presentation ever, because it is so true. It doesn't matter where this industry is going. There's enough consumers that still want an agent that is going to help them and handhold them, because we give too much credit to the fact that consumers understand their coverage. I mean, I would love to see Geico's full book of business across the country to see what kind of percentage has liability limits at the state minimums that they're in.
Oh, yeah.
And, Geico gave them choices. Geico gave them the ability to click, buy online real fast, 15 minutes, we're going to save you 15%. Great marketing tools, but you're giving the full control of how to insure everything that you own by the click of a mouse, and they can figure out, if I take this down, I'm going to save more money. And this is the whole point of this coverage. The problem is that's not the way to better protect you and your family. And there's going to be enough consumers, if educated properly, that want that from you.
Well, that's what I would say to that, Mike. Yeah, I stopped listening halfway through because I had my thought in my head, so I was being a bad listener. We're not for everyone. And the sooner I learned this about a year in, when I had to start saying no to people, yeah, absolutely stuff's going to digitize. TurboTax came around years ago and they'd allow people, but do good clients that have complex needs still hire accountants and pay a buttload of money? Yeah. Yep. There's services. Can you get a will done? I'm an idiot and I did my will on LegalZoom.com because it's simple.
Yeah.
Me and my wife and kids, done. But if I had complex legal situations, so don't focus on where the what I would call crappy business is going. Maybe can someone be saved and turned around? Can someone be educated away from Geico? Sure. But there also has to be a little bit of like a want to. And I think as things digitize and move forward and people go that route and want simplicity and want all the ease, there's still going to be a niche for us to carve out of people who care. And the sooner we, like, as opposed to getting doomsday about like where it's going to go and, oh my gosh, look at Geico. Well, that's for them.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of people that want advice, that want someone that they trust to give advice versus being a 1-800 order taker. And so and I'm kidding, I didn't tune you out, but I was keyed up. Who cares about that?
Yeah.
Right? Find your niche. Niches make riches, as they say. And to me, I'm sure the big commercial producers out there, big agencies, hearing what I do makes them throw up a little bit in their mouth. Like, the fact that we do this, but man, I love it. And we are very profitable, and we write a lot of households with 8 people, and maybe someday we'll have to hire a 9th. But I mean, I don't need a huge workforce. We take care of our clients. We love them. We give them education. We do all the things that you should, shaking hands and kissing babies and donating to every opportunity we can. And it's just not for everyone. And that's cool because, I wouldn't want to have to put on a suit and tie and go into a boardroom and pitch to someone. Like, that ain't me. I'm jeans and a hoodie all day, every day. And I'm not sure I'm going to be able to shake the COVID baseball cap, because I've worn a baseball cap, I think, the last 365 days. And I'm not sure I'm going to be able to shake that when the office opens back up.
Man, that's awesome. And honestly, the loyal listeners should, take something away from that. Take something away from the fact that, you listen to a lot of these podcasts or listen to, a lot of people in the industry, and they always talk these big ideas, right? These big things. But some of the stuff that James is talking about are tiny little changes, developing, electronic signatures and text messaging, VoIP systems, and all these things that's going to help your agency. That's going to help your family run agency move from, the legacy agency that your previous generation, I don't even want to say dad or mom or aunt or uncle, there's so many other, potential people that could be there. But these are the things that, they've been successful for a long time, and it's very hard for them to make major changes, right? And who are we to ever tell them, hey, you need to do this. You need to add text messaging. When they look at their, profit and loss statement or their bank account at the end of the year, and they're like, why? I'm perfectly happy, doing things the way that we're doing. I'm hanging out for another 5 years. I don't see these major shakeups happening. Do you got any advice for the people that are in our shoes? The ones that are joining that family agency, maybe not jumping into a whole division like you did, but ones that need to try and make some of these, minor adjustments or even major adjustments for them to have those conversations with, dad, uncle, aunt, mom, grandparents, whoever's there, to say, hey, I know our customers are used to coming in and seeing us, face to face 95% of the time to do business. We still have a bunch of paper here. We still have files. We still print our applications and wet signature, everything. Do you got any advice for those ones that are already sitting there drowning in the fact that I can't get my family agency to make changes? And, what would you tell them to do to try and, make baby steps towards the future?
That's a hard one. I'm pretty fortunate because, my father and I have a great working relationship. The biggest downside now is that whenever we're outside of work, there's still a lot of work. Like, we go over to their house every Tuesday for dinner. And it's still like a third of conversations between he and I focus back did you get the call from this carrier? Like, there's a lot of that, but openness, I think if you don't have, as a second generation, if you don't have buy-in from the first that you are doing something for betterment of the agency, then there needs to be some bigger bricks moved. I mean, you got to build that trust with your business partner who, they brought you on probably with big visions of you being, carrying the baton. And so, if what you're doing, it's just got to be for the best of the agency. And so thinking of the stuff that we've done, I always talk to my team members, and I'm sure now 40 minutes in, none of them will be listening. They hear me enough. I always just say, is it the right thing for the customer? Put the customer first, and yeah, maybe only 20% of the customers then cared about texting, but do they now? Did it help us? Maybe it was only fitting 20% of the customers that we did some of this stuff, but we did out of the 450, 440 were DocuSigned. Maybe 10 didn't have emails or didn't want it and mail me the paper. And of course we did, because that's what the customer wants. But like when you say, we're going to do it, you can do it from the comfort of your home in your pajamas and call me if you have an issue with DocuSign. We did it all via DocuSign. Like it worked. And we got Google reviews from it and got new clients, it fed itself. So, I mean, it's just, I think obviously buying in the trust, having the same shared vision. If you and your relative or, founder, whatever it is, if you're not seeing eye to eye that you're both doing things for the best thing for the agency, that's a problem. You need to sort that out before you need to digitize or get texting or all that. You guys need to have a real powwow of like, is this the best thing? And there's got to be trust. There's still sometimes my dear old man, he'll be listening to this point.
Shout out Dad.
Shout out Phil. There's still times that he's like, I've run these ad proofs and we're running $2,000 worth of newspaper ads in the paper. And I'm like, that is the worst use of money you could ever do. And then sure enough, we're asking people, hey, how'd you hear about it? Oh, I saw your ad in the paper. And so it's like, we allow each other the freedom and liberty. There's not a lot of no's. There might be a little bit of convince me why. Yeah. And if someone's passionate about it, and he wants to run newspaper ads, go for it, because he didn't do this out of the blue. Like there is still a home for brick and mortar. There is still a home for newspapers. I mean, there's not one size fits all solution when it comes to running and growing a business. And I think the sooner you can, again, establish a trust, move forward, that you are both or everyone, if you're always doing something with it, is it best for the agency? Shout out Pete Carroll. He always talks about, is it best for the team? If you're putting team before me, then that's usually a good thing. And so that's a concept we have really about everything we try to do.
Dude, that's awesome. And I think even the story about your snowstorm and having to prepare for something like that sets you up to succeed, during the COVID shutdown, right? You were forced into a situation to get ready for something. And then when something even bigger happened, you were running, on all cylinders real fast with no problems, and your agency grew. And I think that's a lesson in itself, trying to make changes and add texting, add this program or change this. You'd rather be doing that 2 years ahead of time, slowly testing it out, making sure clients like it. So, maybe it's only 20% or 2% that actually use the product or use this software solution. But know that you're building into something versus saying, oh, wait, we're stuck. We can't access our phone system because of this. Now we're out. Now we are scrambling to survive. And I think there's where those conversations and agree on that trust factor to say, yeah, we might not need this for our clientele today, but, next year we might, or 2 years from now, we might. And as our staff gets more comfortable doing it, it's like selling a new product. You got to build yourself into that so you can go with the bumps, for a year or two until you're running on all cylinders. And I think that's, amazing advice for, any agency alone, but especially the family agencies that have to have those conversations with, the boardroom of family members to say, what are we going to do with that marketing budget? Do we even have a marketing budget? What are we going to do with a yellow page ad? And you look at this and there's that argument, figure ways to, solve those solutions, but make them not as urgent because you're looking ahead versus looking behind.
Yeah. It's the same concept with bringing on producers, adding a new line, all that, like the long-term vision. If you're a partnership listening out there and you're thinking of turning and selling your agency in 36 months, there's different goal sets there, right? You have different mindset, but for a lot of us that were so horribly uncreatively named and they stuck our last name on the front of the door sign, you guys have shared vision of protecting that brand. And it means I can never leave a bad tip anywhere. It means my kids better be well behaved at school because my name is on the front door. And so, as long as you guys can really express family members out there that have the same goal. There's different ways to get to those goals. Usually there's different ways to achieve things.
Yep.
And I think just like anything, the sooner you can recognize people have differences and that's cool. And, my dad still wants to do everything, paper, but he's realized DocuSign was really cool and he likes that. Yeah. And I thought for sure he'd be super excited about getting back to the office. And he's kind of like, I think I might work 3 or 4 days from home and come into the office one day. He's down with this. I mean, sometimes you don't know what you don't know, but just, if you share the vision and you get on the same page, and that's for business partner, it doesn't even have to be family, partnerships, leaders on your team, all kind of have your oars in the water, row in the same direction. I think you're going to get good results.
Well, James, I appreciate your time today. And before we leave, Jason Cass, Josh Lipstone, some of the other voices that you hear on this podcast like to ask the listeners some questions, right? Oh, so gosh. I came up with a quick couple questions, and I know a couple of the answers already just from our conversation, just so people can get to know you a little bit better. So real quick, you
did it backwards, Mike. It was supposed to be the questions at the beginning, right?
I like to do things differently. So first question, choose between audiobooks or podcasts?
Podcasts.
Okay. And what's your favorite podcast? Does not have to be insurance related.
Yeah. My favorite one is a local sports radio show that used to be a 3-hour daily show. And then the host kind of moved on, got bigger things. Brock Heward does big football, college football now. So they just do a once a week, 1 hour. So I used to get 15 hours of content, and now it's down to like 1 hour. So Rock and Sock is probably my favorite. And then for like business listening, I really like NPR's How I Built This. It's all about entrepreneurship. It's not about insurance. It's about businesses. So you can hear about like how Chipotle started or how this skincare product started. And it's usually just about the grind and the story and the vision, which is something I enjoy.
That's awesome. This is a question I thought of just because of what our environment was this past year. Would you rather remote work or have full office brick and mortar every day if you could only choose one?
Ooh, that's a good one. Remote work.
Remote work. See, I was going to think you were going to say brick and mortar.
No, remote work. We're actually planning, you may have seen it. My wife and I have been renovating an old RV that we bought. And we're actually going, just because we know school is going to be back to normal next fall and all that. Our kids are still not in school full time. So we're leaving April 1st for a 2-month road trip. So I'm going to be working from the road for 2 months and traveling up and down the West Coast. So
that's awesome.
I think I would be hard to say I'm really dying to get back to brick and mortar and then in 2 weeks time hit the road for 2 months. It's obvious I'm pretty happy with most of the things about remote.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. Last one. Very specific to, how you'd like to build an agency, an independent agency. You hear people talk about, the number of insurance carriers that, your agency should have. Are you of the mindset of saying you should have, 5 strong carriers or, 20 plus, to get more markets? Which one would you rather build your agency around?
Well, I will tell you, you can do it however you want because you're independent. But for me, it's really 5 to 7, something. We got to have small little niche markets. We have, Haggerty for specialty cars. We have a couple companies because we do a lot of manufactured homes in rural America. So, we have a couple for that. But out of preferred companies, we really write with 4 preferred companies.
Okay.
And then on the health and Medicare side and all that, we probably have 4 or 5 that we do most of our business with. So, I think that the more knowledgeable you can be about the product, the easier you can sell it. And I was just on a call about, Safeco is our number 1 book of business. You got to know all 4 levels of their coverage, what the ultra or premier auto is. And if you don't know that like the back of your hand, you're not going to be able to upsell. You're not going to be able to retain. You're not going to be able to have those conversations when it's just simply about 20 competitors all that you're really selling is price. And I think it's hard to sell the value that are baked into like the good, better, best. It's hard to sell the best when you're, I've got, like, your staff's just gonna say, I've got 20, let me quote you. I've got 20, let me quote you, versus going, do you really want to give up these three things that are good?
That answer is perfect. And, no matter what anybody's answer is, your explanation of understanding the product is, is spot on. And I hear my staff talk about it all the time, saying that same thing, because one, they can't quickly answer, oh, you have the Ultra Home here, don't you have this, reiterate the coverage that they have, and, so they can compare to say, you're going to a lesser product on the phone right away. And it's like you said, it's a lot harder when there's 20 plus carriers that you're trying to memorize this stuff for.
It's impossible unless you were going to write the business and say, oh, the best rate is Travelers. Let me get you to one of our Travelers experts, which then you're a call center, which is not bad. You can run a call center if you want, but like us, that's not, people are buying us. It's the human.
Exactly.
And so, shoot, man, if I have to go to my third carrier in rank, I'm already like, gosh, I got to pull up the product guide. Like I already don't know my third carrier.
Yeah. If the loyal listeners want to get in touch with you, what's the best way that somebody connects, can ask you questions, can watch some of your videos and content? Because honestly, I think they all should, because if you're not creating content in your agency, you are missing the boat, even if it is simple, very, product, not some big, production. What's the best way that somebody could reach out to you?
I'm pretty active on Facebook, as you probably know. Also, this year, my best friend has made a lot of fun of me. I'm getting active on LinkedIn because I think that that's another channel that I want. So I'd say those two. Our YouTube is just, youtube.com/Castell Insurance. Found out that you get your own little name when you get over 100 subscribers. So that hit that mark last year, which is pretty cool. So those three, and, just find me. I'm happy to answer questions. I've helped a lot of people with getting into some of this stuff, what I use, what I do, what software, what video camera. I mean, like Mike said, it's really just about doing it. And if you watch my videos from 5-6 years ago, they were awful, and that's totally fine because it was my start. My first sales call on someone asking about an umbrella policy and underlying, coverages was probably awful too, if you could listen to that. So, I mean, it's a lot better now, and that only comes from practice.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Well, hey, thanks, man. I appreciate you coming on and us chatting and catching up. And I'll be glad once, everything gets back to normal and we can get back to doing some in-person, visits and conferences and all that good stuff. So,
and Mike, the people want more B-roll of Mike Crowley getting into his car, driving to work. Give me more B-roll. All right.
I think the B-roll is retired. But I'll still put a little, entry theme song or something along those lines. We got to keep something going.
You got to do a little bit, but I agree, man. All right, man. Well, it was great chatting. It was good to see you.
Yeah, you too. Thanks.
All right, later.